Warpstone makes the world go round. We're getting spooky in the dark corners of Sylvania, and like moths drawn to a flame, the Dark Ones have come to claim a piece of the pie. Two of the best to ever do it in this one, Felkon, with a Dreadlord on a black dragon, leads the Dark Elves, commanding an army of Witch Elves and Dark Riders, and Aerocrastic leads the Brayherds, with Bestigors, Minotaurs, a highly mobile force of Spoiled Bacon, Mr. Tumnus, and Morghur the Corruptor, Herald of Chaos. Should be a barn burner in this one, so strap in, because it's about to be a bumpy ride. And for Felkon and the Dark Elves, this is a Brides of Cain core, with 4 Witch Elves making up the bulk of the army. Now, I've never actually seen this used against the Beastmen, but there is some logic to it. Witch Elves will beat or trade cost-effectively with most Beastmen infantry, especially if they don't get charged, and their Madness of Cain is hugely impactful against a squishy faction that relies on speed. If you have soft nets that prevent Senegors or Razorgore from disengaging, you can punish them much more effectively, and if we know anything about the Dark Elves, is that they like to punish. Combine them with a bunch of Dark Riders and Dreadspears, and you have a non-DLC army quite prepared for the Cloven ones. Sorceress in the rear is rocking Jest Pit of Shades, which will also pair nicely with that Rampage contact effect, so Aero will have to be very careful not to blob too much when he commits to a flank. And flying overhead is a Lord I'm not sure I've ever commentated a battle for, and if I have, it was probably only at the very beginning of Warhammer 2's life cycle, so 4 or 5 years ago at best. Dark Elf Dreadlord on a Black Dragon with 25% missile resist. I'm not sure if other Black Dragons get that, but that is very substantial. And she has the Hydra Blade, which will take her weapon strength up to 780 while active. So we'll see if she's in for an early demise or some late game heroics. It's feast or famine against the Beastmen, and across the way comes Aerocrastic, led by a Gorbel and Morghur the Shadowgave. The Gorbel is a nice soft counter to any hard targets on the Dark Elf side, like that Dreadlord, and Morghur is naturally tanky and just simply won't die. You charge him in there and he'll summon a bunch of Chaos Spawn. 2 units in fact, one from a dying unit on the other side of the field, and the other as an actual summon, and those abilities can break a game wide open. Chaos Spawn are quite powerful summons. Supported by herds of Razorgore and 2 units of Bestigor, which are a unit that are pretty much destined to die horrible deaths in my employ, so we'll see if Aero can make better use of them in this one. And actually, 0 range units on the Beastman side too. This is a pure melee rush. So, skirmish phase will open up for the Druchii, and this is a matchup where Dark Riders with repeater crossbows can actually have a bit of challenge. Obviously, we'll have the Dragon land in the middle of the Ungor herd to get things kicked off, but if you want to skirmish with the Dark Riders and their repeater crossbows, it's hard to do it against the Cloven ones because they don't have Parthian tactics, they don't have Thumb Ring, they can't fire while they retreat, and the Beastmen are obviously known for having a ton of 90, 95 speed units that are capable of zoning them out and keeping them moving for long periods of time. So Felkon's going to have his work cut out for him here, trying to keep them safe in the pocket, and unfortunately we got Bestigors that moved way too far forward, and they got rampaged. I'm not sure how, because they have not been contacted by Witch Elves anywhere that I can tell. Yeah, both Witch Elf units are a little bit a ways away, so I'm not sure why it is rampage, but that is a horrible spot for it to be, and frankly, it did move too far forward. I'm not sure what he was trying to catch out with the charge, but I think this is going to be an early death for the Bestigor herd because, well, this is pretty much what happens every time I use this unit, right? Like, I miss my charge, they get tied down with mediocre melee stats, and then they get destroyed by monsters and focus fired into oblivion. So, put them on the list with White Lions and Skinks of units that always die horribly for me, and apparently for Aero as well. They got caught out, and Felkon will punish them heavily with his AP crossbows. Regardless, a lot of missed charges at the start of this battle. Felkon missed one with his brides as well, but you know who won't miss? The Minibus, led by Al Gorbel, fresh off his presidential campaign. And I must say, I like the non-shielded pick here because they have their bonus versus infantry, and even the shielded variant won't stand up well to Dark Elf missile fire, so you might as well pick the unit that kills quickly and more efficiently. Black Dragon attempting to stem the tide with a sulfuric breath, which will chunk a good portion of the Minotaur's health away, down to about 2/3 HP or so. Forgot to mention there is a Bray Shaman of the Lord of Shadows with Melkoth Mystifying Miasma and Enfeebling Foe, so he'll be looking to use that MMM against the Witch Elves and chunk them down over time and slow down They're pretty great mobility for an infantry unit. Bestigors are gearing up for a charge on the flank, and both Chaos Spawn from Morghur the Corruptor have been summoned in the center, so Dark Elves are collapsing quickly there, and with the Minibus nearby as well, I don't expect those Dread Spears will be able to hold on too long. There is a Pit of Shades out on the flank. We'll get to that in a second, but right now, Minibus is crumping and stomping everything in the middle, and the Chaos Spawn, of course, imbuing their poison, while the Razorgore herd run over the brides and stick them good. Cloven Ones looking strong in the middle and on their right flank, while Felkon's about to open things up on Arrow's left with a juicy Pit of Shades, and from the depths of hell crawls a yawning chasm into this world, claiming souls. The other unit of Bestigors melting away, and now they have a Dreadlord snacking on their faces. Another sad day for elite infantry in Warhammer 2. We hardly knew them. They did nothing. Neither unit did, and they were taken too soon from this plane. Feels bad. But predictably, as Murderous Prowess activates for the Dark Elves, their center has all but collapsed. Just a solo unit of Dread Spears holding the line against a massive horde of monsters. And the Black Dragon, with the Dreadlord atop it, strength through spite, imbuing that +5 melee attack in an AoE. Combine that with Murderous Prowess, and it's just way too much for the Beastmen over on their left side, and they'll break. And I'm not sure we'll see the Bestigor return. Still, though, the Minotaurs and Chaos Spawn around Morghur the Corruptor is the true strength of this army, and if they can use their mobile forces to support them well, it will be difficult for those Dark Riders to get some good shots into the monster mash in the middle. Milkos Mystifying Miasma from the Bray Shaman on the Witch Elves, continuously trying to chunk them down, but he got caught out by Dark Riders and immediately surrounded and cut to pieces. Surprised by that. I'd imagine that Shaman took some damage from the Witch Elves too. I don't think Dark Riders would have killed a Bray Shaman that quickly, even with a full surround. And the speed on both sides. Gotta go fast, collapsing into each other, and I'll be curious to see how that fight goes. Centaurs should beat Dark Riders 1v1, and they're supported by the Razorgore herd, so you can see Felkon is trying to escape, but he's doing a good job of clearing out the Poison Warhounds and some of those easier to kill elements. Needs to be very careful though, and I think he's setting up for a Pit of Shades. It's the only reason for him to blob here, trying to force Arrow into a blob himself, but Aerocrastic paying attention and will get most of his stuff out of the way, but the spell never came through. I think that caster got knocked down and it canceled it, so Pit of Shades finally does come out, but in a new location, and that will be a decent one. That will actually not do crazy amounts of damage, but it also has that, perhaps more important in the situation, contact effect, where it slows you down, sucks you up, and essentially prevents you from moving. So the Piggyback Riders, unable to escape for the duration of that vortex. They did take some damage and also rampage, so they might throw their lives away here momentarily. Dark Riders are being hunted to the edges of the map, and the Beastmen have completely broken through here and even have a great engagement on the HQ. The Sorceress is running for the hills, and the Black Dragon having its toes nibbled by Poison Warhounds with the Gorble nearby. That could have been a great engagement for Arrow, but it looks like the Black Dragon was able to escape. Minotaurs continuing their infantry rampage, and so far, Felkon has had no answer for them. The Sulfuric Breath dealt some damage to the Minotaurs, but otherwise, they've had free reign to just carve their way through block after block, regiment after regiment of infantry. The Witch Elves, the Dread Spears, they have all met their end at the edge of these massive two-handed cleavers, and the dual Akimbo Minotaurs definitely paying for themselves so far. Another Milkos Mystifying Miasma on the Witch Elves, just a simple, cost-efficient way to try to get them to rout as they move towards the edge of the map on that side. Razorgore herd are rampage, and the Black Dragon should be able to finish them off for good, alongside a little bit of focused fire from those Dark Riders. And Felkon has played well here to keep those ranged troops online in a late game scenario. If the Beastmen run out of most of their fast movers, well, they might have free reign to fire into the Minotaurs, and of course those Chaos Spawn have already crumbled out, so that momentary spike in power is gone for the Cloven Ones, and they're making sure to clear out all this infantry before they have a chance to link up with what remains of the Druki army. Bray Shaman did return. That could be important in a late game scenario as well. Enfeebling Foe or Milkos Mystifying Miasma slow down the Dreadlord and debuff her melee stats, could allow these Minotaurs to get a full surround off. And yeah, It's just carnage, dude. It's just absolute carnage from these Minotaurs. They have been awesome so far. They were always the highlight of Call of the Beastmen, but I mean, 5 years on, 6 years on, and they're still showing everybody why they're such a cool unit. So it looks like we're going to have a soft reset here. Ungor Herd should easily be dealt with by the Dreadlord. Beastmen returning back to their spawn location, pretty much, and Dark Elves, as soon as they finish off these Ungor Herd, will line up for another try. The big question, of course, being, how do the Beastmen deal with this monstrous freak? The Black Dragon is a large problem and is looking pretty healthy at the moment, too. Now, Minotaurs with a full surround off while the Gorbel slices into her flank could certainly do a number on her. Morghur is not a duelist. He's more of a summoner and tank, and he's already done his summoning. Witch Elves are going to try to link up with the rest of the Druchii army, but take a look at these Minotaurs. They realize what a threat that poses. So right now, he has Poison Warhounds that can kind of zone out the ranged troops. We'll take a look at that. Right in the middle, he can make sure that those repeater crossbows can't move out to the flank and fire at his Minotaurs. So Aero is going to continue kind of doing a little bit of harassing and skirmishing in the middle while the Minotaurs move out to the flank and get rid of this threat. Once that Madness of Cain is gone, the Minotaurs will be much safer in any kind of scenario where they won't get pinned down and shot to pieces by the repeater crossbow. So really nice play there to keep some kind of mobile element alive to make sure that those repeater crossbows can't kill his most important unit, and I'd argue that these Monstrous infantry are his most important unit right now. The Gorbel would do more damage to the Black Dragon, but it can't pin down the Black Dragon by itself. It needs these Minotaurs to prevent it from taking off again. So great play there. They'll take some damage, but they'll finish off a full unit of those Brides of Cain in the middle, Enfeebling Foe and Hydra Blade. Black Dragon up to 780 weapon strength and a complete force in the middle of this battlefield, surrounded by an avalanche of corpses. Bray Shaman has seen enough. He's like, that's one big scary flying lizard. I want no more part of it. Gorbel too. That's a big loss. Down to 96 HP. Even if he does, there's no way Felkon's gonna let that return. That's gonna make it much more difficult to chunk through the remaining HP on the Black Dragon. There's some repeater crossbows left still alive, and that will leave the Minotaurs on an island. I don't think Felkon needs to rush this now. He can kite Morghur and make sure he gets some good volleys in while the rest of the infantry is finished off. Yeah, the Poison Warhounds are gone. That was the last unit remaining on this field, besides the Minotaurs themselves, that could prevent that Black Dragon from escaping in a bad scenario. And now he has to go in. Focus Fire will finish off the Monstrous infantry, and Morghur will have to pull out some late game heroics here, and I'm not sure he's able to do it. Like I said, he is not a duelist. That Breath Attack was horrible. I'm not sure what it was going for, but it completely whiffed. I think it was going for Morghur because he realized the Minotaurs are going to die anyway, but yeah, he was moving, so didn't end up doing any damage. It's not really going to matter here. Barring some unforeseen miracle, I do not think Morghur has the capacity to take down a Dreadlord in a duel scenario like this one. Now, this series does not need more Mortis Engine characters. Let me be very clear about that. But Morghur the Shadowgave honestly makes way more sense to me as a Mortis Engine than the Fey Enchantress does for Bretonnia. I've always kind of felt it weird that Miss the Lady does what it does, that it just kind of melts you away in an AoE, and she's impossible to kill in those blobs. I feel like that would probably fit the Beastmen and Morghur better, at least from a lore perspective. And I guess maybe they don't feel the need to do that now because Jabberslythe kind of has a similar Mortis Drain effect. But yeah, I always found that very weird. We didn't get the Jabberslythe until the very tail end of Warhammer 2, and we got Morghur as a free LC for the Beastmen in, like, what, 2016? Yeah, I think when the Wood Elves came out. So we've had him for a long-ass time. He's honestly been the best Beastman Lord for forever anyway. That only more recently changed with the, not the Hunter and the Beast, the, oh my god, Torox and Oxyala, what are those called? Signs of the Fury. But yeah, Morghur is going to die here, even though the bounce bar says pretty much even. He has no chance to take on this beastly Dreadlord, and seriously, she was a monster all game long. 102 kills, tons of damage value on her, got some decent breath attacks into the Minotaurs, and basically wherever she went, things tear around, and, well, Felkon and dragons, he loves them. He knows how to make them work for him, and I've always found them quite dangerous against Beastmen. from both sides, really. They can easily get stuck on the ground, never take off again, and get murdered, but they can also take over battles. And here, I'd say it was more of the latter. That Dreadlord took over. Was really awesome all battle long. So in terms of the army compositions and units, I like the Brides of Cain play, although I wouldn't say those Witch Elves did particularly well. They are not very survivable. They will get blown over by a stiff fart. Do let me know, by the way, if Madness of Cain is an AoE ability. I was always under the impression it was a contact effect, and watching it back, there were 0 Witch Elves touching them when they initially began rampaging, those Bestigors, so, yeah, let me know. I don't know what happened there. That was very weird that his first Bestigor unit got rampaged in the way it did. Regardless, though, saw some really impressive play on both sides. It's a meeting of the minds here, right? Like, both these players are very cerebral, have fantastic micro, but there were some mistakes as well. Losing the Bestigors with, like, essentially doing nothing. I mean, they did nothing for the Bray Herds, and some of those Witch Elves missing their charges also was a little bit problematic because they kind of overextended, and I think he got less damage value out of those Brides of Cain than he could have otherwise. But yeah, the Black Dragon play was awesome. The Minotaur play was awesome. I think Aero had a couple opportunities to pin down the dragon with the Warhounds and then chunk into it with the Gorbel, and 1 or 2 engagements like that could have changed a late game scenario and given him a chance to win. Or even holding on to piggies for a late game. 1 unit of those could have changed everything. But either way, super enjoyable game. GG to Aero and to Felkon, and I'll see you all in the next battle. Any Pride, signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.